Peace. Welcome to episode 74 of No Truths Barred. This is going to be the official recap of the Big Daddy Kane versus KRS-ONE versus, which was a phenomenal night in hip hop. Also, like I love to do at the beginning of every podcast, if you have not done so already, make sure you go to my new Instagram page, which is the underscore No Truths Barred podcast. And please make sure you go and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, which is No Truths Barred podcast. And like I always like to do, I'd like to thank everybody who's taken their time, to provide a piece of feedback, share a piece of content, and click a like button. So I deeply thank you, and I deeply appreciate it. So without further ado, this isn't going to be a really long podcast, but I grew up in the culture. I'm a huge hip hop fan. At one point in my life, I was an MC. I still do consider myself an MC. I used to write lyrics. I was around people that DJ'd, that made beats. And after researching, I would say that hip hop is my second passion. It's my second love. It's so many different things I love about the genre in juxtaposition with other genres of music. And so with this versus that happened last night, I felt like I would be remiss if I was to see something history. This is history. People are going to talk about last night's verses 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years from now. People are going to be talking about what happened last night, what transpired last night. And so I want to do two things in this short podcast. Some of the rounds I'm going to give my take on who I think got the round. Also, I'm going to give my take on who I think, kind of had the W last night. And then overall, the importance of this particular versus. So I want to start with round one. So round one, you had Criminal Minded versus Rhyming with the Biz. I'm going to go ahead and give that one to KRS-ONE. I felt like Criminal Minded was just like the more impactful song, the more legendary song. And throughout this battle, there was one other thing that I noticed as well, but I felt like that was the more impactful song out of the two. So round one, I gave the nod to KRS-ONE. Round three, we had MCs Act Like They Don't Know versus Young Black and Gifted. Now, that round, I gave it to KRS-ONE for a few reasons. I felt like Young Black and Gifted didn't age that well to listen to. And when you listen to the production on MCs Act Like They Don't Know, what it does is that particular beat, it strikes you on a visceral level. Because when you're listening to MCs Act Like They Don't Know, it constitutes everything that you love about that raw, underground, gritty, boom bap hip hop. And you can feel that beat on a deeper level. And so I felt like MCs Act Like They Don't Know was the superior song. So I'm going to rock with that one. Round four was Out of Here versus, I think Kane did Lean on Me for that round. I believe he did. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks, in the comments. But that round, I went with KRS. Round five, I think it was Jack of All Spades versus Raw. Raw smashes that out of the park. Raw is still one of the best displays of lyricism. And one of the things you have to give Kane in this battle is that when it comes to breath control, I'm talking about breath control, but when it comes to breath control, when it comes to metaphors, when it comes to his cadence, Kane is still at the level he was at 88. The dude didn't fall off an inch. And the only one minor complaint that I may make about KRS-ONE is that KRS-ONE seemed a little winded. He didn't seem like, at times, like he seemed like he was kind of like slightly out of breath and gas a little bit. But that's neither here nor there. So that round that was round five. I gave that one to Big Daddy Kane. Round six was My Philosophy. No, excuse me. I don't want to touch on that round because I couldn't decide on that one. That was, woo. Yeah, round 7 too was kind of rough. But round 6 was My Philosophy versus Mortal Kombat. Excuse me. So Yeah, I'm sorry, folks. I done got mixed up. So yeah, round six was My Philosophy versus Mortal Kombat. Definitely went with My Philosophy on that one. Round eight, I'm gonna touch on that, was Part Time Suckers versus Pimpin' Ain't Easy. Kane killed that. And then the other thing with that round is that he killed it because not only was Pimpin' Ain't Easy the superior song, but he brought out Nice and Smooth. And on top of him bringing out Nice and Smooth, they did DeWick. DeWick is one of the greatest hip hop songs ever, with one of the best beats ever as well. I just love the instrumental for that song. R.I.P. Guru as well. So I thought it was hella dope that he brought out Nice and Smooth. Round nine, we had Black Cop. Pardon me. Round nine, we had that was the time. I ain't gonna touch that. I'm trying to focus on the rounds where it was decisive and easy for me to pick. So round 10, we had Daz Effects with Represent Real Hip Hop versus Smooth Operator. Kane takes that round. Round 11, I was kind of like, because you had the South Bronx against Ain't No Half Stepping, so I was a little hesitant on that particular round. I don't know. I give the edge to KRS-One for South Bronx. When you get into round what does he have? Round 14 was Love's Gonna Get You, and then Kane did the freestyle to I Shot You. I'm gonna have to go with KRS-One because the verses, although you can't, it's not anything stated specifically that you cannot do a freestyle. But I look at the premise of verses that we're looking at discography catalog, and we're looking at your best songs at your apex versus my best songs at my apex. So I didn't really like that, but what I really want to get into more specifically that I wasn't able to cover on my social media pages is what I was blown away by with the verses. So what I loved in all is that I think this verses was an educational experience. If you're a younger fan of hip hop and you're not really familiar with these two MCs, I think that you gain a wealth of knowledge, you gain a wealth of respect for old school hip hop by looking at this particular battle. Um, I also think that, long term time fans of these people, you may have heard a song or two that you never heard from this artist. And so I think it was educational on both ends. The other part that I loved about the verses, and I alluded to it earlier when Big Daddy Kane performed Pimpin' Ain't Easy and he brought out Nice and Smooth. I felt like that was hella dope for him to bring them out. And something I didn't touch on was when he did his verse from the symphony and he brought out Craig G and Master Ace. Unfortunately, Cool G Rap wasn't there, and if Cool G Rap was able to come out, that would have been crazy. So here's a unpopular opinion I have about the symphony. When you listen to the symphony, everybody always says that Big Daddy Kane has the best verse on the symphony. I disagree. I feel like Cool G Rap has the best verse on the symphony. If you listen to Cool G Rap's verse, it slightly edges out Kane's verse on the symphony. That's just my opinion. You can tell me whether you agree with me or not in the comments below. But I felt like that was dope because Craig G is one of the greatest freestyle artists of all time. Master Ace has one of the most slept on discographies in hip hop. And just to see those guys there performing the symphony was just huge and monumental. Considering, KRS-One performed The Bridge Is Over. And that was a really tough round. That was a really tough round because I love The Bridge Is Over. Those two songs, you have to appreciate the history and the impact, I think, of those two songs separately, because one song, which is The Bridge Is Over, is one of the most legendary diss tracks in hip hop history. And then the other song, which is The Symphony, is one of the most legendary posse cuts in hip hop history. So that was a hard round. I consider that round a tie because I couldn't really choose which way to go. And I think a lot of us fans, when we were looking at the battle last night, those rounds got kind of rough. Like it was hard to kind of gauge, like, am I going to go this way or I'm going to, side with KRS, or I'm gonna side with Big Daddy Kane. Like it was really tough. I mean, and then what I love was that you saw all of the elements of hip hop. You had DJ Kid Capri there. You had DJ Red Alert came out when KRS-One was performing My Philosophy. That was sick. Kane brought out Crazy Legs. Like this was not just entertaining. It was like almost like a class on classical hip hop. It was a class on the elements of hip hop, and I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I also loved when Kane brought out Roxanne Shante. For all of those who like the women of hip hop, you may look at different sisters that are MCs right now, and I'm not taking nothing away, but one of the things that we have to make sure that we do is to revere and venerate the elders that came before us because they paved a road. And I think what people forget a lot about hip hop is that for a very long time, from the late 70s, really up through like the going into the late 80s, hip hop was seen as like a nonsensical form of music. It was dismissed by the mainstream. See, now people are making millions of dollars. You have so many different companies, corporations that have, spraying up around hip hop. And so now it's looked at as a legitimate career. Now it's looked at as something realistic. But for a long time, hip hop was just seen as something that was, a fad. And when you look back at these people, and not even the people that was at the battle the other night, but if you go back and you look at people like Melly Mel, you go back and you look at people like Grandmaster Caz, you go back and you look at people like the Cold Crush Brothers, Schoolie D, Dougie Fresh, even when Rakim and KRS-One, those guys was coming out, it wasn't a whole lot of money in hip hop. It wasn't like it is now where people are making millions of dollars from being a hip hop artist. And so we have to take the time out to appreciate those that came before us. We have to take that time out to realize it's not saying you have to kiss anybody's butt. It's not saying that you have to suck up and bow down to these people, but it's just a simple thank you. It's a simple, hey, I realize I'm here because you were there. And these are people, you look at KRS, Kane, all of the guys in the Juice Crew, the people that came before them, they walked tall. They represented hip hop when it was seen as something that was nonsensical and a fad by the mainstream public. These people took it seriously and they grinded and they kicked open doors that allowed, and not even just East Coast artists like Ice-T out on the West Coast, E42 Short, it's so many, if you go down south, UGK, it's so many artists that came out that kicked open doors when this genre wasn't seen as something serious. And I think one of the worst things we can do now in 2021 is to dismiss that era, to dismiss the late 70s, to dismiss the mid 80s, to dismiss the early 90s. Oh, that was, way back then. But that way back then was the catalyst for the right now that's creating careers, generational wealth for countless people that aren't just MCs, aren't just DJs, but they may work on the business side of it. You have a whole multi-billion-dollar industry that was birthed from the labor of these artists that don't get that shout out, that don't get their flowers. And that's why I want to shout out Nori and Drink Champs for bringing these legendary artists on and saying like, yo, we thank you. So back to the verses, I think that's another reason why it's important, because it's paying respect, it's giving homage. You had when he you had Buckshot Shorty from Black Moon come out, and how many MCs must get dissed before somebody says don't with Chris, but in the hook it's like, how many MCs must get dissed? How many MCs must get dissed? I'm taking it back. Come follow me to see if a real MC mind tricks the body, make body think the mind is crazy. Like, yo, I love that song, right? It was hella dope. I love the fact that Nice and Smooth performed DeWick. And yo, Smooth B is one of the smoothest MCs ever, and he's always dropping knowledge in his rhymes. But what I loved about Smooth B will give you like a jewel, and it's like some funny bars. Because when you listen to DeWick, he was like, "I left my Philly at home. Do you have another? I'm trying to get blunted, my brother." Now, like I just I loved it, but it was a beautiful night for hip hop. It truly was. It was a beautiful night for hip hop. Let me say this to all of you young dudes out there, to all of you dudes that are so quick to diss old school MCs. Kane's freestyle prowess is effing phenomenal. It's impeccable. Same thing with KRS-One, but what Kane was doing was switching the flow up and just playing with words in all of these unorthodox ways. And so for those young folks, you may sit back and you might listen to Hove or Black Thought or Common or Nas, and they'll shout out Kane. And they'll be like, and you'll be like, why they shouting out Big Daddy Kane? Last night is why. Kane is a lyrical prodigy. Big Daddy Kane is an anomaly. He was an anomaly lyrically in the 80s, and he still is now. That dude was dropping some sick wordplay last night. If you were listening, he deserves all of the props that he gets. Kane deserves it all. And then when he brought, I can't remember the brother's name out, but they did the dancing on stage. It's like he still puts on a show. And the thing I want to say about KRS-One and Big Daddy Kane respectively, because I've seen a few other artists perform live, but I got the privilege a few years ago. KRS-One came here to the National, and I was able to see KRS-One perform. And let me tell you, KRS-One, when he comes into the building, into the room, he's bringing an energy with him, a presence with him. So he kills his show. And just before the end of the show, right? So I'm in the crowd. I might be like 20 feet away. If that. Like, I'm kind of close to the stage, right? So he performs a song. I feel like he performed Can't Wake Up. I think that might have been the song he performed, right? So he just dips off. And shout out to Skills, too, because Skills was the DJ. Not KRS-One's DJ, but Skills was DJing that night before KRS-One came on. But, KRS-One's DJs, and, I'm kind of like, well, damn, maybe this is an interlude. So I'm facing the crowd, and I'm rocking because the DJ's killing it. So I'm standing there, and I hear this commotion. Now, in my city, violence has been known to break out at concerts. So I'm hearing the commotion, and I'm like, damn, don't tell me cats done started rumbling in the KRS-One show. So I'm hearing the commotion, and then I turn around, swear to God, and if you follow me on Instagram, you can see the video. I turn around, and I BS you not, literally, less than 10 feet away from me is KRS-One, and he's backing the crowd back. He's backing people back, right? And he's like, he was like, spread for the cipher, right? My man came in the crowd and started a cipher in the audience. I've never seen anything like that. So that's why I said when people were asking me about this Kane and KRS-One battle, I was just like, dude, I think KRS-One's going to get this because he's an animal with the live performance. Like, my man came into the crowd and started a cipher. Do you hear me? This was crazy. I lost my mind. And then when he was rapping, if you go on my Instagram, you should see it. When he was rapping, he was like right here. And look, so it's crazy because you don't know when our opportunity is going to come. And this is one of my big regrets in life. KRS-One was like right here. And I rapped and I had bars coming to my head. And then he literally was right here. And I could have been the first person to grab the mic. And I got too scared and I didn't do it. So that's like one of my regrets. But anyway, this Verzuz was phenomenal, and KRS-One and Kane, they are live performers. And I feel like when I see artists now perform, you see a guy, he might be walking around on stage. He has a blunt in his hand. He has some liquor. He's holding his pants up. Whatever dumb little things people want to do now when they perform. And you're sitting there and you're listening to him rap. And, you're like, oh, whatever, right? But Kane and KRS and these guys, they keep you engaged. You're locked to them. They're magnanimous. They know how to control the audience and read the room and dominate the crowd and project. And I think that's an art with performing that we got to see a world-class display of last night. And I think that is something that's becoming a lost art with MCs now. And we got a world-class lesson on it last night. So, when you look at the verses last night, we got entertained. We got some crazy lyricism. Hey, yo, a side note, that freestyle KRS-One did was murder. It was murder. That was the most hip-hop thing. And Kane was murdering his. It's just that KRS-One has that slow, impactful delivery. And Kane has that rapid-fire, impactful delivery. And you can see why they deserve the kudos and the props that they get in hip hop. They damn sure deserve it. So to wrap this up, like I said, this is going to be a short one tonight. But to wrap this one up, for me, if I have to be honest with you, I'm going to give the slight edge to KRS-One as the winner. Now, this is why I want to give the edge to KRS-One as the winner. And it hurts me to say this. So, this is not fun to say. I noticed that at certain points, Kane would choose the alternative, the freestyle. And I think the reason why that was because, unfortunately, his discography isn't as extensive as KRS-One's. And then also, I feel like for that sort of format, like songs like Sound of the Police, Black Cop, My Philosophy, Step Into a World. I lost my ish when he did Step Into a World, like I did when I saw him perform live. Those songs seem more built and designed for performing in large groups of people. And Kane had fire too, don't get it twisted. But I felt last night, if we look at all of the elements, the MC who slightly prevailed, in my opinion, was definitely Big Daddy Kane. I mean, excuse me, not Big Daddy Kane, but definitely KRS-One. KRS-One, walked away with the W. So yeah, I just want to do this versus recap. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I said that, KRS-One caught the W last night. Let me know what you felt. And also make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also make sure you check me out on Spotify, Google Podcasts as well. And I'll be back next week with episode 75. Take care and peace.